Hey, Crystal, how are you?
Hello, Jevon. How are you this morning? We
Wonderful.
had
I'm
some
good.
technical problems
That
today.
we did. That we did. But we are, how do you say it? From humble beginnings.
And it's been a minute since
Goodness.
we've had technical. We don't know how to behave.
I know, man. I thought this was all like done. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, and I thought I was such the guru. All right.
I know.
So, are you ready for our topic? I am
I
so
am.
excited about this topic. This is actually, well, it's why we do the show, and it's why we came up with it, and it's why it's like the cornerstone or one of the cornerstones of my business. And so I'm just I'm a little beside myself.
Okay. Well, be beside yourself today.
Okay. Alrighty, so first of all, I want to introduce you,
Okay.
and well, the name of the show, we'll talk about that for just a minute, is what you're doing in the market is probably wrong. So let's talk about that. Okay, so that's that. That's
Okay.
our topic.
That's our
And
topic.
yes, so I'm going to read your bio. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm
Okay.
ready.
Hello, everyone. Please meet my friend and colleague, Crystal Mitchell. She is a business consultant and coach. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. Oh goodness. A co-host of the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, a weekly online radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and she is a QuickBooks Pro Advisor, financial strategist. Thank you for being on my show, Crystal, and welcome, welcome, welcome indeed.
I am always happy to be here on a Monday. It's a good way to start the week talking about money, talking about things that pertain to our retirement and what life will look like in the second act of our life.
There you go. There you go. All
Yeah.
right.
So
Well, as I said before, and of course, it's always wonderful to have you here, but as I said before, this is one of the cornerstones of my business, and that is explaining to people how one theory as to how they may have it completely and totally wrong with regard to the way that they look at their retirement savings. So, just want to say that this is for your retirement plan. I think the same principles apply in an interesting way in a regular plan, but when you take this outside of the retirement plan, you got to do a little bit of refiguring.
mm,
So, what is it? What do I mean when I say what most people think about the retirement plan? They're wrong, and I hope you please stop me when I start to get a little preachy because I can do
I
that.
don't know if it's
You've been
not preachy. You just telling it like it is.
All right. Well, you've been very kind up to this point, and I realized a couple of days ago I was like, Crystal puts up with a lot of my little preachy thing there. I need to watch that. Okay, so so let me know. So so here's the deal. Most people think, and many of my friends think, in fact, I'll just give you an example before I tell you what he was thinking. A friend of mine said, when it starts going up, I put a little bit more in. And when it starts going down, I just pull a little bit out. And that seems to work for me. And what we were talking about was his investments inside his 401k plan, right? And so he looks at the market, not every day, but if he hears something on TV or if he happens to read something or people start saying something, he
Mm,
looks at what's going on in the market.
mm,
That is, the Dow was up, the S&P was down, what have you. And if it's going up, he tries to catch that, put a little bit more in. And when it starts going down, he tries to stop that by going to cash. Okay. So at
okay.
the yeah. So at the beginning of the process, just looking at that on first glance, you may think, wow, that's not such a bad way to go. When the market is going up, I get in, and when the market is going to go down, I get down. And if I lose a little bit, that's okay, right? Because I'm catching most of the up and I'm capturing most of the the down. I'm not letting the down hurt me, but I'm capturing most of the up. Okay, that's one. And I
Okay.
think it means the same thing, or it's very similar to folks who say to me, maybe you could say it's completely different. My 401k hasn't done anything in the last X many years. It just sits there. It hasn't grown. It just sits there. Oh, okay. That's kind of similar in my mind. And the reason I say this, and the reason I bring these two examples up, is because a lot of people get confused and really upset when their retirement plan is not going the way that it should go. It's just sitting there, or they've got to make sure that they put some more in or take some more out, and they don't want to deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else ought to do this because they don't understand the way the market is going, and they really don't feel equipped to make that happen. Like for example, if you drive a car, you may not know how the internal combustion engine works, or you may not know how that computer actually drives the wheels on your electric vehicle, but you need to put gas in, you need to change the oil, that you need to do some things. And so even though you're not a car expert, you know how to work it, you know how to
Mm-hmm.
make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling is not there when it comes to retirement plans. Much reason why we started this is just not there, because there's a lot of folks running around who just don't know what they're doing. And the market is this nebulous thing that we just really don't understand. Yes, it's stocks and bonds, but how did they get there? And who did that? And who are these people that are making millions of dollars of money? And how come I can't be one of them? That's all I did. And I told you about my dad, right? He's probably going to
Mm-hmm.
watch this one day and roll. He said to me, Javon, I don't need to hit the cover off the ball. All I need is a 20 or 30% return without too much risk, and I'll be happy. And my father said that to me about 20 years ago, at least.
Okay.
We're still poor. So
So maybe he should have hit the
maybe you should have
cover
been
off
willing to
the
hit the
ball.
cover off the ball, right? Maybe, maybe, maybe. So what I'm getting at though is there's a mindset around the stock market that people just don't understand. And I think is because we haven't explained to them some of those fundamentals, which is what I want to go into now. So the reason I chose this article, what you're doing in the market may be wrong, is because most folks don't know how to think about this thing we call the market.
Right.
Um, and so the first thing I want to say is that
Well,
the
most
tenets
people
of
have not been educated in this space. They barely understand how money works. The only thing they know really, Javon, is I put it in the bank. I use my debit card and I pull it out of the bank. Used to be in the back in the old days when we used checks. You're like, okay, when
talk to me.
when I don't have any checks, then I
Hello.
obviously the money is no longer available, right? But it's actually the reverse. If you don't have any money, checks are
That's
not
when the money gets in there. Yeah,
the
that's when it
money has
stays
no
there.
value. So that's really the that's about as much knowledge as they have when it comes to money, and they don't understand, so the stock market is something entirely completely different,
Totally
is
different.
right. And so
Totally
here
different.
they don't understand the basics. They don't even know what the stock market is in most cases, but they're at a company that has a 401k, and their monies are being invested, and they don't have a clue.
Mm.
So it makes sense. They probably heard it somewhere in passing. Someone says, but generally you hear buy low. That's what you hear all the time. So somehow or another they missed that conversation, the buy low part.
Well, and that's so. Thank you so much for jumping in because I can sound like I'm being judgmental, but I totally get what you're saying. Nobody's told them, and nobody's come to their door and said, "Hey, here's the market." You don't get the market on Sesame Street when you're watching Oscar and I don't know who the Oscar the Grouch and who else is on there, Buddy
Right. Whatever it is,
Ed
they're
and
not having this
whoever.
conversation.
Yeah, they're not having this exactly. So let's just get to some fundamentals, and the first one is buy low, sell high, which makes sense. right? Buy low, sell high. And
Mhm.
then when I say that, I go into a bunch of different examples, and people kind of look at me, kind of, their eyes start to water and roll and stuff. But that's the deal. You have to buy low and sell high. How do you do that? Well, um, I could drop some names, but I'm not going to because they probably don't really care what I say about them. But there are some very wealthy people that use what we call a contrarian point of view. And that's a pretty
Mm,
important word, contrarian point of view, which means they're going to do the opposite of what's going on.
mm,
All right. So that
mhm,
means when the market is low, they're going to buy, and the market is high, they're going to sell. So when their portfolio starts to go down, they're going to add more. And when their portfolio starts to go up, they're going to sell so they can buy more. Okay.
mhm,
There's a tool that people use in retirement plans called rebalancing. And that's exactly what it does. It takes your winners and it sells them and it buys your losers. So over
mm,
time, that continued practice allows you to buy low and sell high. Now, why would you want that? Why would you want to buy something that's decreasing in value and sell something that's increasing in value? Well, number one, we know the tenant works. Everywhere it works. You buy a car, you buy the
mhm,
car when it's cheap, sell it when it's more expensive. You can. You buy a
mhm,
house. You buy your house when it's cheap. It gets wealthy. You sell it. Right. You
mhm.
don't buy your house at the top of the market, and then when your house starts losing value, start complaining that you're not going to be able to sell your house for what you paid for it. Right. That's what
Mm,
people do when they're desperate. They buy the
right.
house at the top of the market, and when the market comes down, then they feel like they paid too much. They feel like they made a bad decision. I'm not going to say that's a bad decision at all. You need a house, you need a house. Your kids come when they come, your guests come when you come, your relatives come when you come.
Mhm,
You when you need a house, you need a house. So that may be the best decision that you can make at the time, and that's fine. But I'm just saying that the mindset that we have around the market is really what we need to work on because that will guide us. And the
right.
first tenet of that mindset: buy low, sell high. So what's that mean in the retire in the stock market? Okay, typically, I'll say this: when you hear about things that are happening, you missed it. It's too late. So typically, by the time an event happens in the market or in the world, it gets to the stock market. Typically, not all the time, but typically, by the
Mhm.
time the news organization sees on it, put it out there, and you hear somebody's analysis of it, and then you decide you want to act upon it, and you take a day to make sure that happens, and you got to do laundry and all that kind of stuff. By the time you get around to acting on it, it's already gone. That event to make that money was already gone, or to make that move is already gone.
Right.
So you might ask, okay, how do I prevent that? How do I buy when I need to and sell when I need to? Well, you have this thing called rebalancing. You can go to your 401k plan provider and you can say
Mhm.
to them, I want you to rebalance my portfolio on a quarterly basis. And what they will do is on a quarterly basis, they will sell the winners, buy the losers. So it doesn't matter what they say on TV. Maybe you miss the exact thing, the exact
Mhm.
event.
Mhm.
But over time, and that's the big deal, over time, you're going to buy low and sell high. So who cares if you miss the event or not, right?
Right.
If you miss the
Right.
event in year two, but you get to buy low and sell high for the next 20 to 30 years, you've achieved your goal of buying low and sell high in the market. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's the first one: buy low and sell high. So what makes someone think that's going to work? Why would you want to do that? Okay. Well, since the crash of 29, and it's interesting that I'm saying that now, but since the crash of 29, the stock market, the S&P 500, the indicators that we have, they've returned between 9 and 11%. Here's the interesting thing. When I started in the market yesterday, when I started in the market those many years ago,
Right.
we used to say between 12 and 13%. but now we say I think we say between 9 and 11%. So we say that the market has returned between 9 and 11%, and the stock market has returned between 6 and 9%. Pretty interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that it doesn't do that every year. That's just an average. And once we do that average, we can say, on average, year over year, that's what happens. But in actuality, that's not the way it works. Sometimes the market returns 20, sometimes it goes down 4 to a negative 4. Sometimes it returns 20, sometimes it returns 16, sometimes it returns 2, sometimes it returns 15 and 18, right? I've
Mm-hmm.
rarely seen the market return 11, and I've rarely seen the bond market return 6. I've rarely seen the bond market return 9. It's usually somewhere in there.
Mm.
So we cannot say that if you get 11%, that's good. And if you get 9%, that's bad. We can say if you get 20%, that's great. If you get 16% or 10%, that's awesome. But the average that you're looking for is 9 to 11%. So if the average is 9 to 11 and you receive 20, my mind says sooner or later you're going to get smacked,
Mm.
right? Sooner or
Mm-hmm.
later it's going to go down. And how do I prepare for that? So the smart person would say, okay, Javon, I'm okay with that. I buy low, it goes up. How do I buy low again so it'll keep going up?
Right.
Because that's what we really want, right? We buy low, it keeps going up, keeps going up. I bought it low back here. It should still keep going up. I bought it low here. I want it to keep going up and up and up and up. So how do I do that? That's why you're a financial advisor. Advise. And of course, I say it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So what do you have to do? Well,
Explains it a little bit.
what's that?
So, but in if do you have that kind of autonomy when your stocks are within your 401k? Um, can you make those kind of quick movements?
You know what? People would think that we rehearse this, but that's just a great question. What an awesome segue. I promise I did not put a card in front of Crystal to say, ask this question. Okay. How do we react? All right. So most of us don't know much about the market. It's like I know very little about how the internet works. I just use it. Right.
Right.
So how do you make that happen inside your 401k plan? Well, number one, it doesn't work with the situation where, okay, we only pick the ones that are growing. That would
Right.
drive you up the wall.
Right. Right.
You would be crazy. And if I could do that, I wouldn't be here talking with you right now. So what do? We use our tools. Well, we know that each 401k plan has a rebalancing tool. So we
Mhm.
know that if we set up our portfolio and hit the button that says rebalance every quarter or every 6 months or every year, whichever one we choose,
Mhm.
will allow us to where the tool will actually sell the winners and buy the losers. And I would just say this: if you're thinking about a 401k plan or you're thinking about an investment plan and they don't have a rebalancing picture over a well diversified portfolio, leave that 401k plan, especially. Just tell
Mm.
your boss it's not good, lobby to get out of there. I don't know of a mutual fund company that doesn't allow you to do that. Now, what about those times where those folks are managing the money for you?
Mm.
Let's say like in a target date fund. They're managing
Mhm.
the money for you in a target date fund. Okay. They are rebalancing every day sometimes. They're rebalancing when they need to,
Mhm.
not just on a quarterly basis. That's a pretty good deal. You've got folks that are looking at this all the time, and when they see an opportunity, they rebalance your portfolio. That's pretty cool. Not a
Mhm.
bad way to go, right?
Right.
I have other issues with target date fund, but when it comes to rebalancing, you can't beat them. So that's tool number one: rebalance your portfolio. Tool number two: your asset allocation. Allocation. Over 90% of the growth in your portfolio comes from your mix of stocks and bonds. It doesn't come from the particular stocks and bonds you have. It doesn't come from the industries that you invest in. It comes from your mix of stocks and bonds. Over 90% of the growth. Now, you might not get very much growth, but the growth that you did get, 90% of it came from
Right.
the level of stocks and bonds. And that's a pretty important thing to remember too. Okay. So, how do we make sure the asset allocation is right? Because we know we need to take advantage of the ups and downs in the market, and we know we can do that with rebalancing. So, how do
Right.
we make sure that we're getting as much of the growth out of that portfolio as we can? Okay. The way to do that is to find the asset allocation that's appropriate for you. Now, this is very important because most people I know have a problem, like I said in the beginning, with their thinking about their market. They
Mm.
think that they should be able to put their money in and let it go and it grows and they have money like very wealthy people. And and they and when it doesn't grow, they say it hasn't done anything. It's just sitting there. If it's just sitting there, I could just take it out and spend it because it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. Right. So the second tenet is your asset allocation. Don't let the market determine if you're inside your 401k. This is for regular people. Once we get outside the 401k, something different. But inside the 401k, don't let the market determine what your asset allocation is, the amount of risk that you should take. Should I say that again?
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the market determine the amount of risk you should take.
Right.
The amount of risk you should take depends upon you, right? Depends upon how you feel about the market. So, one of my friends said to me this weekend, I don't want to lose what I have. I don't care if it grows. That's not an answer. It's not acceptable. Throw that out. It doesn't work. It doesn't compute, right?
Right. Yeah.
What does compute is I feel this way about the market. I'm an aggressive investor. I'm a moderate investor. I'm a ultra aggressive investor. I'm a an investor that is a conservative, right? Whatever those terms are, there's usually about 6 to 7 of them. I'd say there's about 8 terms. Let's go about 8. Let's say there's about 8 or so terms that people use. And the way they rate them, and they're all rated, so that you could figure it out, right? So
Mm-hmm.
any financial advisor worth their salt is going to be able to tell you based on the questionnaire that you take, what kind of an investor you are. And I'll just put it out here flat right here, and I'll probably get cards and letters. If you have an advisor that looks at you and after a 30-second conversation determines the risk tolerance that you have, fire them.
Yeah,
Just get
because
rid of
how
them.
would that be possible? They don't know them.
Exactly. They don't know. And you don't have a framework to work in. I tell all of the clients that come to me, take the risk questionnaire. And they'll say, well, I'm this kind of person. I'm like, it's 8 questions. It should take you 10 minutes with a ham sandwich. Take the questionnaire and we'll go
Mm-hmm.
from there. The
Mm-hmm.
value of the questionnaire, in my opinion, is that it puts you on a scale that you can see. And as you get older, or as your risk tolerance changes, let's put it that way, you can go to the right appropriate level. If you don't do that, then you're willy nilly all over the place. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what the next step is. You don't have it defined. It doesn't work for you. You don't have a pattern. You don't have a system. So, taking that questionnaire, whether you do it online, and every mutual fund company that handles 401k plans has it. Everyone does. The big guys have it, the small guys have it. Independent folks like me have one. They're all about 8 to 10 questions and they all break your portfolio up. So, how do you determine your asset allocation? Take the questionnaire. When should you take the questionnaire? I say once a year.
Mm.
If you want to make me happy, once a year.
And
Now,
and
why?
I think a good analogy would be, I do the same thing when I talk to businesses about their financials, right? I
Yep.
ask them, first, I have to find out where you are. Even when you tell someone to budget, right? That's a
Yeah.
part of financial literacy, right? Being able to set a budget. But I, as a financial person, can't tell you what your budget is if we haven't gone through a questionnaire to assess where your funds are coming, how much money you have coming in, how much money you're going out, right? So I would imagine it would be the same thing. You can't, you just, and if I say just budget 20% of your salary every month, but I don't think I have 20%. And the reason you don't know if you have 20% is because you don't know what all your expenses are. So the same thing with you, what you're saying, I believe, is you can't tell them how, whether what their risk tolerance is until you actually know what their life is like.
Exactly. I can't. And I can't just make it up. And I just don't have the experience to say, well, you're 5'2", you've got 3 kids and a mortgage and a this and a that. And so your risk tolerance is X. And this
Right.
is the right. No, I don't have that. I
No,
don't have that.
nobody
I
does
have to,
actually.
yeah, I have to, I have to cheat. And so I cheat. And the way that I cheat is I use that risk questionnaire. And I just had a client, he just finished his first year with me, and he took the questionnaire and he said, I'm a pretty aggressive investor. I said, yeah, I don't know what that means. So you got to take the questionnaire. He took the questionnaire, and guess what? He was an aggressive investor. And he said, okay. And so this year I had the same conversation with him. I said, okay, so take the questionnaire. And he says, I haven't changed since I was last year. And I said, really? Really? He said, yeah. He says, I'm an aggressive investor. I said, okay, I tell everybody to take the questionnaire. So could you just take the questionnaire for me? He took the questionnaire and he was an aggressive investor.
So
He
you
just
looking
sent
at
it
you
to me a
like,
few days ago.
I
So, I
know.
mean, sometimes but I don't know, right? And
Right,
I have to know if I'm going to
right.
talk with you about where to put your money, because aggressive in your mind might not be aggressive in my mind.
Hmm.
And and then we've got some decisions to make. But you're absolutely right. I use a system and I cheat with that system, and it works. And the beauty of that system, I think, is that most of us don't get it right the first time we do it,
Right.
but it's a starting point, right? We do it, we talk about it, we do it again maybe, and then we've got it. And there's only 10 questions, so we know
Right.
what it is. And if you do it every year, to make me happy, if you do it every
Hmm.
year, um, then from year to year, you see how your progression of risk changes. And risk can
Right.
change for any number of reasons, right?
Yeah.
I talk to people now who say, well, I used to go to clubs and then I got married and I had a child and now I have a family, so I don't go to clubs anymore.
Right.
Really? I thought you were a club person, right? So risk can change for not what's going on in the market, but what's going on in your life, right?
In
The
your
clubs are
life.
still there, right? It's what's going on in your life. So that's when you change your acceptance or your risk tolerance, how you feel about the market. That's when you make the change. When something happens in your life, you get married, you have
Hmm.
children, you get old,
Hmm.
you know. When I first started in the business, I had a girlfriend. I know it's hard to believe, but I had a girlfriend, lovely lady.
Now, why would that be hard to believe?
And she was very, very conservative.
Right.
Very conservative. She's like 25 years old. If you give her $1 today and it's not there tomorrow, oh my goodness, there'd be no peace in the household. So, in order for her to get some sleep at night, more importantly, in order for me to get some sleep at night and not hear her worrying about her money not being there and how expensive it was and all the fees and da 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 da, we need to
Hmm.
get her a very conservative portfolio. And did she lose money? Yes, she lost money in this very conservative portfolio. And was she upset? Yes, she was upset. But at least she understood, if I go conservative, my chances for making money in an up market are limited. And that's
Hmm.
what happened. That's what
Hmm.
happened.
I know
Fast forward.
I read something
I
the
was going
other
to say,
day, that it was just something that popped through my Google feed, and I think it's with I have a subscription with Market Watch, and there was a question they can or write in with some questions, and so this person had a question in that he had 300,000 in his 401k. His wife had 450,000. They were very conservative. And now something has happened in due to health issues, he's going to have to retire early. And so he was like, I guess I should have, and his comment was, I guess I should have been paying more attention to this on a yearly basis to see how my life really was going to be, and if I should have been more aggressive or should have been less aggressive. So obviously he didn't push the button for balancing. And so now the issue is here, and his question was, can we survive on this? 300 and something $1,000 now that I have to retire early because and I think it was due to health issues. So would that be that could be one of those scenarios, right? You never know what the future is going to hold for you.
That's such an important point. And as a financial advisor, I think especially we have to be cognizant of stuff happens. You can't
Mhm.
plan for everything. You can only do the best that you can do. You get cancer and you have to leave work and take all your money, and or or you have triplets instead of the one child that you're going to have. And so instead of that 529 plan that you were going to start when your young person came in the world, you got to start three of them, which means that you don't have enough money to fund them all, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
all kinds of things can happen. And certainly being a single mom and having to be out of the workforce for 7 to 8 years, prior to that single momdom, if that's a word,
Mhm.
prior to becoming a single
Mhm.
mom, you've lost all those. You've lost all the contacts. You weren't putting money away, and here you are with children to raise. How do you contribute to your 401k plan? And let's not forget that in order to collect from Social Security, you need 40 weeks of income, right? You got to work
Right.
for 10 years, 40 quarters. I'm sorry, 40
With
quarters,
the quarters,
right?
right.
40 quarters.
Mhm.
40 quarters. If you don't work for 40 quarters, that's not there. That makes it really tough on the women in our society. So,
Right.
what are you going to do when you find yourself in that situation? At the end of that situation, what do you do? Looking back and saying, I should have done X, Y, and Z. Well, that's a great poster for me to put up in my office for when people sit down in it. It doesn't do you a whole lot of good, right? To
Right,
beat yourself
exactly.
up, right? We got
Right,
to
for
make the
sure.
best decisions that we can. And I think that using our tools and cheating the system just a little bit is a great way to go if we know how to do it. And the cheat that I use, and most of my colleagues use, is that questionnaire. We use the questionnaire to determine where you are so that you're in a strata. And then we also use that rebalancing tool. If we jump out, all right, so what's that person supposed to do? He's got three, she's got four. We got to ask the questions. Do you have the house? Do you want to live where you are?
Mm.
Um, do you, or would you, how old are you? Are you going to be able to get Social Security? Can we hold off and spend a little bit until you get to Social Security where you get some money in? Can we develop a strategy that's going to work for you? Or, yeah, do we hope and pray there's a government program?
Mm.
I have lots of friends now. They're just hoping the government does something. I don't have a whole lot of help from. Can you move in with somebody? You know,
Yeah.
but you have to do something.
Yeah, and that's a serious thing. And that's why you always um are enforcing the planning part, because you can't plan, you can't, we don't have crystal balls to assume that our life is going to go without any challenges, and curveballs happen all the time. And the only way you can deal with those curveballs is to at least see if you can preempt them by doing some pre-planning.
It's so true. There's a great Prussian leader, and I'll Google him for you if you'd like me to. But he said that no well thought out plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. So we can plan as much as we want, right? But life is going to happen. And I always say to my friends, And I say to women that I date, maybe that's an issue here. I always say a plan is a beginning. It's just a beginning. You just need to have the plan. Once you get the plan, you can go anywhere you want, right? But you need to start with the plan.
Got to start with a plan, right?
Start with a
Exactly.
plan, right? Because
So
you
true.
got to start somewhere. Start with a plan. Um, but I think you're absolutely right. Is that enough? Could be.
Yeah.
It depends on where it is and how you use it, what else you got to put with it. But it could be, and how old he is. If he's 72, I doubt he's 72. But
Yeah.
if
I
he
think
were
this is, yeah,
72,
I think it was going to be early. Must have been, yeah, because you can't go earlier than 62, right?
you can take money, and it's tough to get money out of Social Security before 62. That's like
Right.
the starting age.
Yeah.
Um, and in that article I sent you, that was, I don't know if I said it to you, maybe it was another one I was reading, the five most horrible ways to get your money, and that was to take money out at 62 for most people. But
Yeah.
there are lots of financial advisors that will say, take that money at 62 and invest it. If you get 11 or 12% in the market, you're going to outperform what you would have gotten at Social Security. So why not
Mhm.
take that risk, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's a
So
lot
that
to
that's
think about because we live longer now. But the longer we
we do.
live, that means there's more catastrophes that can take place.
Well, that's true because we're not necessarily living better. Yeah, but
Right,
if we get
exactly.
back to where we started, which is why most people think of what they do in the market is the worst thing they could do. If you think that you're going to time the market with the tools that you as a person has, that is, you're listening to the news, you're in tune with the radio, you read smart money, I'm just going to tell you right now that by the time you hear about it, it's too late.
It's too
So
late.
that doesn't work, right?
Right.
So if you think that you're going to outperform the market by putting that money in there and just not losing it, there's a very good chance that you're not even going to make the 6%,
Mm,
right? And if you think that you can catch it, then I'd like to see it because it's so tough to catch. It's so tough to catch. Um, so the other thing you want to do is realize, number one, the market goes up and down, so take advantage of that, right? I say to folks, we go to the beach when the tide goes out and when the tide goes in, right? So we always have a good time at the beach, right? But you have to know how to work that. You got to know
mhm.
where to put your tent up, right? So
Mhm.
the market's going to go up and down. Work that so that it becomes a good thing,
Right, exactly.
right? We're
And I
thinking
like,
that.
I'm sorry. I like that the article says that, like you said earlier, most investors follow the crowd or they become very emotional about how they invest, and that um, they follow their fear or fear of missing out on something.
FOMO.
Right, right, exactly. And I don't think that the stock market is not that place to act on fear. I think the wealthiest people, when you follow them, your Warren Buffetts and Charlie, his buddy, they don't operate out of fear.
No, they don't. Not only do they not, and the I want to say the reasoning behind that is this is a thing that fear kills you. It just kills you. You have to be non-fear. I don't know what the word is. You have to be emotionally.
You
Um,
have to you have to kind, I guess, if you, again, I think if you have something, a plan, and you know things are going to come from here, 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 right? But if you stay with your plan, then you've, hopefully in that plan you've evaluated what risks or what possibilities could be taking place, right? And you have
well,
possibly you could be better
yes,
prepared,
yes. No, no, you're right. You're right.
right?
You're spot on. You're spot on. Everything you said is correct. I was just going to say, well, you have an ace in the hole. You could
Yes,
talk to a financial advisor, right?
yes,
If you talk with a financial advisor, not only do they have the rebalancing tool to help you with, to think about, to help you engage your carrier with, but they have the questionnaire to help you get the right risk tolerance,
Mhm.
and they know how to get you a well-diversified portfolio. That's the
Mhm.
deal. How do you diversify your portfolio so that you spread it around? Each one of those three things is designed to mediate your risk. That's what they're designed to do. So when
Mm.
you're looking at the market, you want to take advantage of all those tools and cheat mercilessly. Take the questionnaire, get the
Mhm.
well-diversified portfolio, and rebalance. That's what we call cheating. You could call that educated cheating or something like that.
Okay,
So
all right.
why do you want to have a well-diversified portfolio? Why not just pick the ones that are going to go up? Well, I don't, 30 years ago, who ever heard of Google?
Or let's look at it, look at even more current. We got Google, but did you have thought 5 years back, maybe 10 years back with Facebook and how they've grown to where they've grown to pretty dominant in the social media platform, right? They're were definitely one of the leaders. But then now in this new mega space, things are happening over there that is causing their stock to drop. I think it's like I read yesterday 40 something percent. And I think I had read an article that a lot of their employees are leaving because now the stock doesn't have the value. And I didn't know that they the higher paid employees get paid more in stock options than they do in actual cash.
Hmm.
So, and I guess that's probably common in the tech world. So the high paid ones are going, I'm going to leave, take my stock and take cash out, and then I'm gonna go to another company and I can buy in at whatever their rates are with the volume or with whichever they have, and they get more money. But who would have thought that 5 years ago?
I wouldn't have. I certainly wouldn't have thought it 10 years ago, or
Right.
certainly 18 years ago when I started selling retirement plans. We had a totally different way of looking at it. Amazon, that was a bookstore that didn't make money. Who who would believe that in due time they'd have distribution centers around the country? And what can you not buy on Amazon? You can
What
buy
can you
almost
not?
everything there.
And that they
So yes,
literally
things
have
change,
pushed brick and mortars out of the business place space.
right?
Yeah.
So there's always something coming. And I
Yes.
think now, I mean, this isn't part of our show, but I think now with the internet and with social media, things come faster, get bigger, and go out quicker than they used to.
Mhm.
I mean, the person that invented the candle, that was a long running business for a
Mhm.
long time. And then electricity came
Mm.
and light bulbs. Oh
Mhm.
my. I mean, we still have candles, but they're not like they used to be, right?
Right.
So you're absolutely right. Things have changed, and you have to you got to figure out how that's going to be. But I don't know what the next new thing is going to be. I have no idea. I didn't see Google coming. I didn't see it, but it's
Right.
here. So what do we do in the market? Well, we get a well diversified portfolio. And for most Americans, that means we are putting our money in mutual funds that have between 50 and 150 or 50 and 500 stocks, companies in them,
In
right?
their under their
In that.
umbrella.
Yeah. So by investing in different kinds of them, big ones, medium sized ones, small ones, international ones, value portfolios, growth portfolios. We can talk about all that later. But by spreading your money around amongst all of that, you can get yourself a well diversified portfolio so that whatever happens in the market, you can profit.
Mm.
Okay. That means that depending on your portfolio, and this pisses people off, but depending on your portfolio, you should look for it to go up, part of it to go up, and part of it to go down. It
Mm.
just should happen.
Mhm.
Part of it ought to be taking advantage of what's going on in the market. Part of it ought to be suffering because of what's going on in the market. And if you periodically rebalance, you're going to be buying those things that are suffering. But we know that we know that our market, wow, yeah, we
Da,
know
da, da,
that
da.
our market is dynamic. And so things that go down don't stay down, which is one of the reasons why we have surges in the market from different companies, right? So
Mhm.
as the market's dynamic and whims and worries change, if we have a well diversified portfolio, and that means investing domestically as well as internationally, then we can take advantage of the whole market. And if we rebalance our portfolio appropriately, then we know that based on our risk tolerance, based on what's going on in our life,
Mhm.
we're making decisions about our effect or the way that the market is affecting our portfolio. And
Mhm.
that's the right mindset. Based on what's going on in my life, how do I create a well diversified portfolio with the right mix of stocks and bonds for me, my asset allocation, that's rebalanced on a regular basis? And then the last thing that I would leave people with is stay the
Mhm.
course, take the emotion out, just go in, do what you got to do, and leave. Some people say, I don't look at it. Those people I just want to slam up against the wall. You should look at your portfolio on a have you heard that commercial where the little kid says he's got to put somebody in the wall, put him in the wall?
I'll put them in the
So
wall.
yeah, put him in the wall. I hate that. I say look at your portfolio on a regular basis,
Yeah.
but understand your plan.
Yeah.
And your plan is those three things: well diversified portfolio, rebalance your portfolio, and get the right mix of stocks and bonds. Why should you look at your portfolio on a regular basis? So that you can take that questionnaire and make sure you have a rediversified portfolio, a well diversified portfolio. Make sure that your rebalancing is coming up
Right.
or you know when it's going to happen. Make sure that um, that you're not reacting to the market from emotion, but you're doing it in a non-emotion kind of way. And
Right.
that's why most people are managing their portfolio in totally wrong way. Because most people are emotive, they follow the crowd, they don't have
Yeah.
a well diversified portfolio, they don't rebalance, and
Right.
they have the wrong asset allocation for them because they're not thinking of it that way.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
then the overall thing is then after you do all of that, you got to put some money in. You have to, you, you got to keep feeding that boy. You got to keep feeding him.
Like, darn, you got to put
Yeah,
money in.
you got to put the money in. You got to put the money in. You know, you have to put the money. You can't make money without putting some money in. You got to do it. It's a hard thing for people to hear, but the days where you bought this stock back in 1927 and here it is 1975 and oh my goodness, you've made tons of money. We don't have that kind of time. We, that's that's not going to happen for most of us. And there's a lot
That's
of
true.
there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of feeling like we're not making the right decision and is this going to work and da. So you got to put that money in. Most people should be contributing between 10 and 15% of their earnings to retirement.
So now,
10
so
to
normally that
15%.
happens. I mean, it's an automatic kind of thing, right?
Yes.
I mean, because when it comes off the top, you don't even know that it's happening. So it's so much easier to save that way than after the fact.
It is, right? And don't get me wrong, 10 to 15% can be a lot.
Yes.
I mean, gas prices just went up in some places to
Oh,
$7 a gallon. So,
but
you
I,
may be
I
living on all of your
I have a
portfolio.
little inject here for the gas prices. So, we've been paying $4 or $5 for some time,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
can't even remember the last time I paid $3 for gas. Can you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
So I was reading an article this weekend and everybody was just up in arms about the gas from the East Coast, right? And
Yeah.
so they're going, how can you pay $3 for gas? That's ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, you guys can't even complain about anything. We've been
Man, that's
paying
almost worth the trip.
all right. We've been paying $3 gas for the last 10 years. What the
Oh,
heck are y'all crying about?
yeah.
And
$3.
especially when I said, when your gas is, and I showed a picture, it's $6 because I think, well, actually, there is someone that's doing a meme or a picture, not even a meme, around the Beverly Center, and the gas station there is the gas is starts 9.45, nine
Oh
dollars
my
and
goodness.
45 cent for gas.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This really is a conversation for a beer because that is high. Oh my word. Oh my gosh.
Nine
And you
dollars.
know, that really, really hurts people that are on the bubble. I mean, if you're barely making it, I mean,
Oh,
you got the money's gone. It comes in and it leaves. $9 a gallon.
nine
Oh
dollars
my
because I
goodness.
think I spent um let's see, I usually don't let my tank get below half of tank. And of course it's we still not out there. I'm still not out there yet as much. And so my gas lasts for about a month and a half. But yeah, I know, a month and a half, but that's since COVID, and everything is done right here, which is fine for me,
Yeah.
especially now at $9, at $6 and $5 a gallon. But um, but I think I spent about $80 for the half a tank.
Mm.
That's
Oh.
Yeah, I got a
Oh.
15-gallon tank. So,
Oh yeah.
but I figured, okay, so I really not gonna drive now. But a friend of mine
Yeah.
told me they filled up their car and it was $135. I don't
Mm.
even know what that looks like.
Oh
I,
no.
so again, it's almost better to come off the top. But you do have to have 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs now. You got to be a real Jamaican now.
Gotta have a few jobs, yeah. That is yeah, man, that is rough. Man, $7, $9 oh my gosh, that's
$9 a gallon is
and
that's
we're headed there. You know it's
we're
coming.
headed there. We're headed there.
I mean, I'd like to
Especially,
say, "Oh, blah, 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 blah," but it is coming. It's
well,
coming.
with the world the way it is right now, with what's going on in Russia, what's going on in Ukraine, not in Russia, but in Ukraine, is throwing everything, just because we don't know. We could be sitting on the precipice of a World War III.
We could be, but, even in World War III, we need some gas. Somebody need to go get that gas, right? I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, come on.
I
Just
just
go
don't
get that
understand
gas.
how we got to a place where we were reliant on a country such as Russia for gas. That's what I don't understand.
Well, the problem is it's multifaceted, unfortunately, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we don't really want to I really don't want to pay. I don't want more gas, but I need some other options. I need a subway or a good bus thing or something that's running.
Right,
'Cause,
exactly.
you can't just be taking the gas and then
And then
I mean,
telling me to
taking it and
go
then tell me I got nothing.
right,
Come on.
or
That's just
tell me to go sit on a train that only goes north and south.
yeah, right?
And
I
that
mean,
doesn't do east and west.
yeah, 3 times a day. That's it. That's just not cool. It's just not cool.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
but I don't, but I do believe in the entrepreneurship and the I don't know, the go get 'em attitude, if that's what it is, of the American people. And I'm not going to be surprised if Americans come up with something to fix this gas thing. I don't know what it'll be, but I can imagine. I
yeah.
mean, I didn't think we were going to make money during COVID, and so many people made huge amounts of money during
Yes.
COVID.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think one of the interesting signs about our economy is that, especially here in the US, is that the more gets thrown at us, the more people think of opportunities to turn that into something that's going to work for them. So I can just imagine something is going to happen to where I don't know what it is, electric cars or something, but I believe in the stick to itiveness and the entrepreneurship of the American people.
Oh, I think so. I think I saw something yesterday that you know, the little go-karts or like go-karts that they use in Palm Springs and they use in the beach areas. They're probably down there where
Yes.
you are, right? And
Yep.
they're for the
Hmm.
neighborhood. I think people are
Yeah.
using more of that to like go over to the supermarket and things like that because they don't, you know, they're more like mopeds, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and buying those for your immediate area and only planning on long-term trips, you know, you probably would reduce that. And we're still kind of still we're not past the pandemic yet, so we still are on kind of hybrid type of schedule anyway.
True that. True that. I think
Yeah.
there are lots of folks that aren't going into the office. I just talked to a colleague whose company said to her, "We're not opening the office back up. You've been working for the last year and a half or so at home. The productivity has come back. Why should we pay all this rent for the office when you're just as effective at home?" And she has a problem because she has a dog, and every time she leaves, the dog goes crazy. So she's,
I mean, yeah,
she's
I mean, this is a I was on a call this morning with one of my sponsors, SoCal Gas, and they're no longer in their downtown office where they were paying hundreds of multiples of thousands of dollars in order to stay in that. They're all working from their own home offices, and I think in some cases they put like work centers various communities where the majority of their employees live,
oh,
maybe, and so,
okay.
like for conferences and stuff, and so they may go like a WeWork kind of thing. So they may
Hmm.
go there for big meetings, and pay for it as they need it, and pretty much, I think this is a new way of now that is one way to reduce the consumption of oil in especially in California,
Yeah.
where we're definitely a country, a state that is driven by cars, and as much as they'd love for us to get out of our cars and get onto public transportation, that's not going to happen no time soon because
No.
we're not New York, we're not San
No.
Francisco, we're not DC,
No.
we're
I mean,
none
I
of
would
those.
get on public transportation if it was more aligned with what you didn't say. 3 trains a day going north and south. If we could do a little bit better than that, you know, I mean, come on. But
Right.
I think what's interesting to me is that, I mean, we have earthquakes out here and issues, but that subway system in New York, that wasn't built in a year. It took
No, it
them a
was not.
while to get that done. And if you look at that subway system in Europe, that didn't happen in a year or 5 months. It took a
Right.
while. And so I think one of the things that's missing from our economy is, in my estimation, is long-term planning. How do we set up a system where we, can long-term plan? I was talking to a friend of mine in Guadalajara, and he said part of the problem with Mexican politics is that things last for as long as the person's in office. So if the person is in office for 4 or 5 years and they start something in year three, it gets a couple of years, and then the next person's going to come in and they're not doing that at all. That's just not
Mhm.
working.
Yeah, because it's
So
not their
rarely
policy.
do they have a project that lasts multiple offices. But we have to
Ah,
think that way,
yeah.
multiple candidates. We have to, and that's tough when we have all this infighting and lack of respect for one another.
Mhm.
You know,
Which is
I
really turned when we talk about the financial piece and the economics of living in this country and even specifically in this state. Those create big hindrances for us when we're talking about saving for the future because the economics to live to the day I mean, if with $9 a gallon or $6 or $5 a gallon, that right there is about a 15% increase in your expenses. But then your rent, we've if you're renting, that's almost at 65% of your rate of your income.
It's
And
going up.
and it's going up. And since the pandemic, we have food prices that are gone up. So it is so much higher to live right here in this state that we're living in that you can't afford to have less than 4 or 5 jobs or 4 or 5 revenue streams coming in.
You're making an excellent point, and I think our view of history has to include that for a few years, I'm going to say at least 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4 years, our inflation was really low. There was a time when we thought we had 3% inflation. That was
Mm.
the number that we chose. 3% inflation. Can we go back there to
No,
3%? And
no.
we thought that was high, right? I mean,
Right.
that was still prices going up, but prices have gone up since the couple of years ago, 7% in some places.
Yeah.
Like, boom, that's like twice as much inflation as we used to have. And there's a good chance they're going to go up a little bit more by the end of this year. And we're talking in a short period of time, like
Mhm.
this year to the end of this year.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like you
I mean, just
said, that puts a strain on that.
it puts a strain. Health insurance, even if you, I mean, at one point, I remember back in the day when I first worked for insurance companies, oh, we had the best insurance on the planet Earth. You probably walked away with paying nothing. But even today, with your affordable health care, you still have to pay a portion of that. Whereas we
Oh,
didn't even have to pay. You remember back in the time when you didn't have to pay for any part of your health insurance?
you're right. I had the good fortune to work for very large companies that had excellent health insurance.
Mhm.
My girlfriend at the time didn't have that option, and she would just roll her eyes when she saw the amount that came out of my check for healthcare insurance. She just couldn't believe that was possible, right? And then, and then, God help you if you did Cobra, where
Right.
you had
Oh,
to pay that on your own. Oh my goodness! And
yeah,
that
it's
was
like
back then.
yeah, and that was a culture shock because again, you hadn't been paying at all, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden they're talking about $900 for insurance. Are you crazy?
Yeah, my
Right,
goodness.
exactly. So
Yeah.
we just living in a different world, and that's I think the primary reason why one has to save. One has to plan because
It's
things happen and they happen without precedent. I tell my business owners that when we do finally get out of this pandemic, there's
Mm.
another crisis coming. So in your business, we plan for what those crises may be or those obstructions or whatever. You may lose a big contract that takes care of all your payroll. So you have to be prepared and you can't be waiting until the contract is like 2 years out or 3 years out. You really need to be working on other contracts to make sure that that in the event something happens that you can replace that. So you're building those relationships. We just can't wait for
So
one
true.
thing to happen in order and then activate. We have to be
Right.
always in activation mode and looking for, as I tell my business owners, always looking for opportunities that will generate more revenue for your business.
Exactly. Well
Yeah.
said. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. So I think that, and I tell my clients nowadays, so that, their risk management, their insurances, their retirement, these are all things, your life insurance, all things that have to happen to take care of yourself and your family. So I always encourage them to look for other revenue sources so that they can actually dedicate a stream of revenue specifically for those types of your family, your personal needs. And then that way, you don't, if increases or whatever, this is already dedicated to this. So now you might have to go get some other revenue streams. Or as a friend of mine says, she has a revenue stream for every financial obligation that she has.
There you go. There
Yeah,
you go. That
yeah,
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, because you
And
gotta
on
better
that
prepare.
note, I must bid you adieu. So, any final words, or are we just gonna leave it right there?
I think we're gonna leave it right there. We just, people basically things change and things sometimes change that you have no control over. And what we're living in, the world we're living into now, things are changing rapidly, and majority of the time we don't have any control over it.
Exactly. Yes. So
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. But I'm gonna go out on the 3 to 4 things that you have to do in order to survive
Okay.
and stop this wacky thinking that if it happens once, that it should continue that way. That, if the market goes down, it's going to keep going down forever. And if the market goes up, it's going to keep going up forever because it's going to go up and down. And that's a good thing. That's actually a really good thing. So, the way to take advantage of that, number one, get the right asset allocation, which means the right mix of stocks and bonds, which means take the questionnaire and figure out what your risk tolerance is. That's job number one. That's 90% of the growth in your portfolio. Number two, you have got to have a well diversified mix. That is a well diversified mix of stocks and bonds. You got to do that because having one stock is going to kill you. You're and you're going to hate me. So get a well diversified mix. And number three is you have to rebalance on a regular basis. And if you're in a retirement plan, 401k, a simple, um, maybe even a SEP IRA, maybe you should have the option of rebalancing your portfolio. And if you don't, then find somebody who can do it for you or do it yourself. You can do it, but rebalancing, selling the winners, buying the losers on a regular basis helps keep your asset allocation and your mix of stocks and bonds. It helps keep it in line for you so that your risk tolerance stays the same, so that you don't have to worry. That's the worst thing is people get worried, they get afraid, and then they do something that's not good.
Right.
And that number one fact there is why you could make 3 to 4% more by hiring a financial advisor, someone that can talk you off the wall when you get worried and you get afraid and you
Right.
act based on fear. And that's what most people do. They act on fear. So asset allocation, well diversified portfolio, rebalance. And the last thing I'm going to say is put some money in the account. You have to put the money in. You can't expect to let it grow and leave it there. You got to put that money in. And for most
Oh,
people,
you're
that's
so
10 to
difficult.
15%.
So
Got to put that
difficult.
money in there. Please put some money in there. Put that money in. Pay yourself first. All righty, ma'am. As always, it's been a pleasure. I want to read your bio and then let's let these folks go home. It was
All right.
great seeing you. It's great
Same here.
having our audience. So here we go. This is my friend and colleague, Crystal Mitchell. She is a business coach and consultant, CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, co
Hmm.
director of Recycling Black Dollars, co host of the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, that other radio show, instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Thank you, Crystal, for being here. I'm Jevon Thomas, a licensed retirement plan advisor. We are Crystal and Jevon, and we thank you for joining us for this latest edition of On the Patio with Crystal and Jevon.
It's been a pleasure. And if you guys haven't noticed, we have these conversations in very beautiful areas on the patio. So today we're at the beach. We haven't mentioned that in a while, and there's a very
No,
specific reason why we do that, because these are some of the conversations you can have in a more relaxed setting, and with your
yeah,
friends and family and relatives, and you can have some pretty deep conversations sitting on looking at that beautiful ocean horizon in those beautiful chairs, and just planning out life.
yeah. Yeah, and if you have one of those conversations, don't don't feel bad about calling Crystal about what happened, what was said.
Right, exactly. So we'll see you guys next week. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you now.